Aaron Torres joining us, host of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, also hosting on Fox Sports Radio, and has a great column up right now on KentuckySportsRadio.com about the winners of the transfer season, which, of course, you know, the Hogs are right there. AT, you say that transfer season is over, so is it really over, or are there just like a few guys?
No. Well, listen, transfer season is over for 98% of college basketball, okay? Transfer portal season doesn't exist at Arkansas with Eric Musselman and that coaching staff. It is a never-ending thing in perpetuity. You know how they say, like, space goes on forever? And when you kind of try to wrap your head around, something just going on forever, you can't really comprehend it. That's basically transfer portal season with Eric Musselman. And so, you know, the roster, is it 100% set yet? I don't think so. I'm blanking on somebody, what was it, the Wade kid from Wichita State had Arkansas as a potential landing spot. So I would say for 99% of college basketball, keep in mind, you know, I think it's easy to forget because it feels like March Madness just ended. But, you know, most of these teams, including Arkansas, their teams are reporting back to campus shortly after Memorial Day weekend for summer school. So in theory, it should be done. In a lot of places it's done. I do think Arkansas is one of the few exceptions where it is just going to keep on going as long as Eric Musselman is the head coach. Well,
and I mean, the SEC really seems to be like destination number one as far as the conferences are concerned for a lot of these transfers. You've picked 7 programs. That's half the conference as winners in the transfer portal this offseason. Looking at Kentucky, at Arkansas, at Auburn, at LSU, Florida, Mississippi State, Alabama. It's almost like I feel like if you're not on this list, it's like were you even trying if you're an SEC basketball team?
Well, and it's funny because, like, even Texas A&M, I think they got some really good players. Now, they lost probably more really good players. And that's the tough thing about doing a list, you know, now. Like 3-4 years ago, it'd be like, okay, you know, 10 impact players hit the portal, whatever. Now, everybody gains guys and everybody loses guys. And so what you have to really look at is who did they lose, what role will they play, what impact will they have, and then who did they bring in. And so you look at somebody like Arkansas, you know, Desi Sills, we know, very important part of last year's team, but I don't think he's a key cog. I don't think anybody would say that. Ethan Henderson, no disrespect intended to either of those players. And, you know, it's kind of the same at some of these other schools. You know, Kentucky, they lost some players, but the ones they gained are, at least on paper, a lot better. And so that's what's interesting about putting together a list like this now as opposed to 2 or 3 years ago is you kind of got to, you know, you don't even have to assume. It's just a fact. Everybody is losing somebody. The question is, who did they bring in, and is kind of the net gain better than the net loss? You know, I think Texas A&M is probably about even. Somebody like Georgia, it's definitely a net gain, but even Georgia, like as much as I've crushed Tom Crean, as everybody's crushed Tom Crean, he brought in a player or two that's pretty good this offseason. It's just a matter of, you know, he lost about 5 or 6 that are better. So it's a weird time in college basketball, but as you and I, Phil, and Matt have talked about for weeks now, you know, it has certainly created interest in this sport April into May that was never there before. And while I don't like the one-time transfer rule, I will say from an interest standpoint, it has certainly created a lot more.
Yeah, from a writer's standpoint, too, as someone that covers college basketball as closely as you do, man, I mean, it gives you a whole nother – you know, niche, and you found that niche. As far as I'm concerned, AT, I mean, you know your college basketball in and out, but when it comes to transfers, you're the guy. You're the transfer guy.
Thanks, man. Well, I appreciate that, and that's really just a byproduct of watching a lot of games. It's funny, and we may have talked about it on this show. I can't remember, but, you know, I've seen kind of some of the other national writers, some of them I consider friends, kind of scoff at the idea that they would cover transfers. And you know, first of all, there's a lot of guys that do it really well. Jeff Borzello from ESPN, I think, does a phenomenal job. Sam Vecini from The Athletic does a really good job. You know, but I've seen other guys scoff at it. And you know, the analogy I make is 2 things. One, first of all, I can never be a recruiting guy, right? Like you know, the best recruiting writers, whoever they are, they're on the road 300 days a year. And so, you know, I can watch video of the top 25 high school players, Moses Moody, whoever, and have an opinion on them, but relative to the thousands of players out there. But look, I'm watching college basketball anyway, so to me, it only makes sense to kind of, jump into this lane and provide fans that, it's no different than when somebody tunes into my podcast because, hey, Arkansas is playing Oral Roberts in round 1 or they're playing, whoever. They're playing Colorado in round 2. I don't watch the Pac-12. What do I need to know about Colorado? It's kind of the same. It's like I watch Colorado. So if you're going to come to me for, analysis on how they match up with Arkansas in the second round, why wouldn't you come to me for analysis on how their point guard potentially fits in at Arkansas? So to me, I actually don't get the media that it doesn't seem willing to cover this. I think it doesn't make sense in my mind. I made a joke with somebody yesterday. Imagine if Adrian Wojnarowski told ESPN, hey, yeah, I'm not going to cover the draft this year. Just tell me when the rosters are set. Or I'm not going to cover free agency. Tell me when the roster. I don't think Woj would get fired, but his bosses would be mad. I mean, an NBA writer not covering free agency is ridiculous. They cover it the way they would the regular season. And I think increasingly in college football and college basketball, these are two things that we're going to cover more closely, monitor more closely in the coming year.
It was a resistance to change, I think, for some people that are just used to doing things in a certain way, or at least that the games that they cover, the institution that they cover in college sports had been the same for a long time. And I don't mean to, I'm not insulting him by saying this. Bill King, who's I think the king of college football, he joins us every Wednesday on this show. And I remember a conversation, Aaron, that he and I and Ty had when Ty was on the show. And this was all about the Kelly Bryant transfer out of Clemson. 2 years ago, it turned out not to really be all that big of a deal, but he was like the first one that made it seem like this is kind of the next thing. It's free agency. Bill was resistant to it because he was resistant to even covering it because he'd done radio for 25 years in college football. That had not been a thing. And that was nothing that they were interested in. You don't have a choice now, I think, if you're covering even college football, college baseball, you have to talk about this stuff. It's just the way it is.
Let me jump in real quick. And what I would say is a few things. Is one, first of all, I can't speak to, maybe part of it is I'm a little bit younger. But listen, by the way, for the record, I don't like the one-time transfer rule. I think it's bad, but I can't deny that it's created interest. But, what I would also say is, I don't know if, Phil, this is just all our radio background, having done this for a while, but, I talk about this with my radio partner all the time. The world evolves, and you have to talk about it. And, my radio partner's a little bit older, and, he used to break down baseball on national radio in the summer. And now you talk NBA free agency is in many ways bigger than the NBA season itself. I always say, and I think that there's truth to this, we cover the combine, Phil, the NFL combine. I mean, think about that. In a normal year, we're sitting there breaking down hand size and, 40 times and 38 bench presses. What does it mean? And for somebody that's been doing this 30 years, I don't think they can imagine. But we have to go to where our audience wants to go, Phil. And that's one thing is, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I talk about stuff that my audience isn't interested in because I think they are. But the one thing I always try to do is, if this is what my audience wants, then this is what I have to talk about. And I do think that's what the good radio hosts do. That's what the good podcast hosts do. That's what the good columnists do, whatever. Because, again, I'm sitting here saying, even outside of the college sports realm, imagine if you told someone 20 years ago, hey, we're going to broadcast the entire NFL combine. We're going to broadcast the 40 sprints and the quarterbacks throwing to air. They would have told you you're crazy. But it's taken off. People are interested. People watch. And now, when, on the national scale, that's something that we now talk about. And to me, college sports is no different. This is what we talk about. So anyway, I'm belaboring the point, but you kind of get it, I think.
Well, sorry. So transfers is just one aspect of a pipeline of talent to programs now. The other aspect of talent of a pipeline would be incoming freshman classes, which might be devalued a little bit now. And you've got this overtime elite league, I think, starting up. One of your UConn guys is like a head coach there, right? Kevin Ollie. And they're going to be paying six figures to some of these high schoolers coming in there to start their professional career really before they're even really ready to. And I just, this is not a death knell of college basketball. What this seems to me is just bringing on more risk that college basketball programs don't have to worry about in some cases.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I have so many mixed thoughts. And, what I always say on my podcast for anybody that has heard me I never begrudge anyone for taking money, for going to get, a professional opportunity. First of all, what I would say is a couple things. Let's never forget the one and done rule is an NBA rule. And what I also say, and this is something I've long believed, when did we determine that, okay, after your senior year of high school, it's perfectly conceivable to go pro, but the day before you graduate high school, oh my God, he can't possibly be a pro. And so my stance has always been, if we're going to open it up, just open it up. If Amani Bates at 13 years old, somebody identifies as the next big NBA thing. For people who don't know, Amani Bates is number one high school player in the country. Or, they identify LeBron James. Go sign him. Let somebody sign him to a contract. And so anyway, I'm rambling, but the reason I bring it up is a couple things. The Overtime Elite thing is interesting because this G League program that has been set up, it's for graduating high school seniors. It's kind of that bridge year rather than going to college. You go to the pros instead. But this Overtime Elite, they just signed two kids that just completed, if I'm not mistaken, their sophomore years of high school. And so what's interesting to me is I don't regret, you get paid a couple $100,000 at 15 years old, 16 years old, good for you. But when NBA teams can't even figure out, how to draft correctly 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, now we're projecting, we're going to pay a 15-year-old kid and assume because he's really good at 16 years old that he's going to be really good at 18, let alone 22, 26, 28. So I just think it's an interesting concept. I think anybody who follows recruiting rankings know they fluctuate quite a bit. I brought this up this morning, but, Cade Cunningham coming out of his junior year of high school was like a fringe top 20 recruit. By the end of the summer, he was the number one player in America. But all I'm saying is at that age, talent, skill level fluctuates so much. Now you're adding money. I don't know what it's going to look like. What I would also say, Phil, I may be in the minority. I don't think an Arkansas fan cares. If they have a team on the floor at Bo Walton Arena on November 3rd that can compete for a national championship, that's all that they care about. Same with Kentucky fans, same with Kansas fans. And if that means that, the top 8, 10, 12 kids, whatever it is, never see college basketball, but darn it, Arkansas is really good, or darn it, Kentucky's really good, I think that's all Arkansas and Kentucky fans care about. But maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, I think you're nailed right on the head there, man. I think there's no doubt about that. Aaron, we got to run. I know you're not with us next week. Headed to Vegas. Have a great trip, my friend.
All right. I will. I'll do my best. I'll try to be responsible. All right.
No, not that. Just fun. That's all.
Okay. I don't have to be responsible. Okay, good to know. I was confused there for a second.
No, not
I was
at all.
worried. I was like, I don't think I can live up to that, but.
You can live up to a lot of fun. What happens there stays there. But you got to go home at some point, and we'll have Aaron with us.
You did. You read the tagline. Okay, you've seen the commercial. All right.
That's right. I'm paid by Vegas.
All right, Phil.
Today.
We'll talk in a few weeks, man.
You got it. That's Aaron Torres from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. 877-377-6963 to get on halftime for this final segment of the last hour. I will say, the way Aaron puts to the thoughts to the idea of this transfer portal, the risk of incoming freshmen is passed on to the Overtime Elite. That's not that bad of a thing for college basketball. And it's a lot of money to pay for a lot of risk. Right back.